distributors manage their strained working capital? Maureen Sullivan is head of supply chain finance with MUFG. Hi, Maureen.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you very much for being with me. This is an important topic, especially considering the economic trends that we're seeing developing right now and in the months ahead. I'm just wondering if you could explain to me, how are product shortages driving a shift in inventory management away from just-in-time strategies to so-called just-in-case?
Well, thank you for asking. I think the mantra to successful supply chain management is based upon having the right product at the right place at the right time and at the right price. However, surging demand for certain goods and services, combined with COVID-related factory shutdowns, along with port disruptions, are leading to longer and more costly in-transit timelines. And these are the primary ingredients that have upset supply chain management philosophies, especially regarding global sourcing and just-in-time management that have been in place for many years. Products tied up in factories or ports are lost sales. So to meet sales demand, we are witnessing a pivot towards a just-in-case inventory management with increased emphasis on developing strategies to identify multiple sources to ensure access to necessary materials, onshoring to enhance product reliability, and holding higher levels of buffer stock to meet demand. And while the physical supply chain adapts to these new norms, there is an implication to a company's financial performance beyond potential lost sales. In fact, working capital is being stressed by higher levels of inventory carry, which is really the amount of time inventory is on a balance sheet before it's converted to sales. This has a detrimental impact to the cash conversion cycle, a measure of a company's efficient use of cash. So why is this important? There is a general opinion that companies which are able to quickly convert inventory and other resources into cash are often viewed as those with better financial management.
Okay, well, I want to talk about those solutions in a moment, but I just want to drill down a little bit more to the current state of affairs. On top of this, we have rising inflation and rising interest rates. Does that also have an impact on placing a further strain on working capital?
Absolutely. Given companies are witnessing longer inventory carry timelines, they have a few options on how they can try to manage their cash. One would be to negotiate extended commercial payment terms. That's sometimes a challenge because their buyers have an equal stress on their liquidity. And so besides these higher inventory holds dragging on working capital, there is a new dimension which is really related to increased storage costs. Actually, to hold this inventory someplace implies that there's higher storage costs, as well as inflationary costs. And both of these are eating into and eroding companies' margins.
Yeah, the cost of money is going up, and companies that were sitting on huge reserves of cash during the days of low interest rates are now feeling the pinch, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of these solutions for cash-strapped manufacturers, distributors, and for that matter, consumers too. What are some of the things out there that are happening that can alleviate the pain a little bit?
Well, there are levers that can ease the impact of higher carrying costs. And some of these are explored through using supply chain financing techniques. And really, what is supply chain finance? It's a phrase that has a lot of different terminologies. Sometimes it's referred to as payable financing, reverse factoring financing. But in essence, it's a working capital tool that can help both parties to a commercial transaction to really leverage the liquidity one party has versus lack of liquidity for another. So in essence, supply chain finance enables a buyer to optimize working capital by extending payment terms to its suppliers, who in turn have access to efficient financing via bank or third-party platform. This allows companies to manage their cash flows more efficiently. It allows suppliers to have an alternative source of liquidity, typically at a lower cost. So suppliers can convert their receivables in a much timelier fashion to cash and use that cash for other purposes.
Mhm. Okay, so they get paid earlier, they get paid faster, but is there a price to that? In some cases, are they also negotiating a certain amount of discount in exchange for being paid earlier?
Well, there are
Off the bill.
there will certainly be a price to it. Time value of money is really the fundamental philosophy here. But generally, what we see is the suppliers will be able to benefit from the lower cost financing rate of the buyer. So, in fact, there could have minimal impact in the net amount of discount that a supplier may pay.
Okay, so that's it's a good solution for everybody. So we've been talking about the flow of funds and money, but of course, this additional inventory is still sitting there. It's physical. It's sitting on a boat. It's sitting in a warehouse. Can anything be done about that, or is it just necessary to have this new buffer stock in order to meet potential disruptions of the future?
Well, there are products under investigation around inventory management and inventory financing, but those are still in their nascent stage. In the interim, companies can look at other levers, whether it's accelerating their sales or extending their payments, both of which will have a positive impact on their working capital.
Mhm. Well, in the good old days, we had vendor managed inventory, which basically involved OEMs just shoving the inventory further upstream where they didn't have to worry about it to the last minute. Of course, that sat on the suppliers' books. Is that where are we with that? Whose books is this stuff weighing down right now?
It's really weighing down most companies that are more concerned about having, again, the right product at the right place at the right time. So they're
Mhm.
carrying higher inventory levels, and it is putting stress on their balance sheet management philosophies.
Okay, so going forward, what are some maybe you want to call them holistic payable solutions? Or what does innovation look like to you going forward that would help to address these problems in the future?
Well, I think companies are beginning to realize that when we look at holistic payables, they have a very broad spectrum in their supplier spend, and not all suppliers should be treated equitably. There are ways that a company can insert operational efficiencies by using alternative payment mechanisms that are best suited for suppliers that are occasional suppliers, not strategic suppliers. There are situations where a company can look at their suppliers that might be best suited for early pay options where they use their own cash. And then lastly, with their strategic suppliers, we feel that that's where the opportunity is to really introduce a sophisticated supply chain management program, which again will provide their strategic suppliers with critical liquidity, especially in stress times, as well as at a cost-effective rate. Generally, what we do see is that enhances the buyer-supplier relationship in the end.
Sounds to me like what you're talking about is a whole toolkit of different solutions depending on the profile of the buyer, the supplier, the type of goods, the amount owed, the whole thing. There's just no one single solution
Exactly.
going forward.
No, we firmly believe when we look at our client spend file that it's not one size fits all,
Yeah.
that it should be segment based upon the different categories of supplier type and spend type.
Yeah. Nor are these stopgap solutions just in waiting for us to go back to the way things were 2 or 3 years ago, because that isn't going to happen anytime soon, right?
No, I think we have started the journey on a new process of looking at things in a much more robust, holistic fashion.
Well, it's a rocky journey to be sure, but it sounds like there are some creative solutions out there that will help smooth the way a little bit. And Maureen Sullivan of MUFG, I want to thank you so much for helping to clarify what some of those solutions might be for buyers and suppliers alike. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.